Hi everyone, welcome to round 3rd of the SOC Analyst Interview Series here on Cyber Education World. Now, this round is where interviewers really want to see how you think like a defender. We are talking about real world SOC scenarios like logging anomalies, phishing and brute force attacks and malware alerts and more. Okay, in this video I will walk you through how to approach these questions step by step, just like you would during an actual alert investigation. Okay, if you have ever wondered what it is like to things like a SOC analyst, this round will give you a great head start. Okay. Question first, you receive an alert for a user logging in from two different countries within 5 minutes. What steps would you take? Okay. This scenario is a classic example of suspicious logging behavior. Let me walk you through my investigative process step by step. First, I do validate the alert by checking the raw logs like timestamps, source IPs and geolocation data to ensure it is not a false positive from IP based geolocation error or VPN usage. Next, I do reach out to the user directly using an out of band channel like example phone call to confirm whether they actually travel between those locations or used a VPN. Okay, it's a human check often clarifies legitimate exception. Okay. Meanwhile, I do check for related activity on their account like failed logging attempts, privilege acceleration or unusual file access pattern. Okay, I do look at a firewall and VPN logs to see if the user connected via a corporate gateway or want through Tor exit nodes, details that help determine risk. Okay, if the login proves unauthorized, I do disable or lock the account, force a password reset and initiate a deeper session and endpoint analyze to scanning for malware or remote access to install on their devices. Finally, I do document all findings in a ticket and escalate to the incident response team if needed and update detection rules, maybe adding a rule to flag any loggings from geographically impossible location. Okay, and keeping lesson learned ensures that SOC improve over time. Okay. Now, an endpoint is communicating with an unknown malicious IP. What would be your investigation process? Okay, this is a critical alert that could signal data exfiltration or a command and control channel. Let's how I do handle it. First, I do confirm the alert's accuracy by comparing the SIEM's threat intel field against multiple reputable sources like VirusTotal, Abuse IPDB to ensure the IP is indeed malicious and not a false positive. Okay. Next, I do identify the endpoint owner and a scope, what the user or system account was active, when the connection occurred and which process initiate the connection. Using EDR logs, I do look for the parent process, whether it is a browser, a unknown backdoor or a suspicious script. Then I do isolate the endpoint from the network to prevent further malicious traffic. On the quarantined host, I do run a full antivirus or a EDR scan to check for persistence mechanism like startup entries or schedule task. Okay, and dump running process for memory analyze. Okay, simultaneously I do trace lateral movement. Did the attacker pivot to other machine, checking window events log or Linux audit logs to helps here. After containment, I do eradicate by removing malicious files, killing malicious process and applying patches or updates. Finally, I do recover the endpoint from a unknown good backups if needed, then document every step, date, time, tools used, and lesson learned. That's why we refine detection and response procedures for future incidents. Okay. Now, how would you handle an alerts indicating a brute force attempt on a secure cell server? Okay. Brute force attack attempts against secure cell are common, but let me outline how I do investigate and respond. I do start by reviewing authentication logs like example like var log authentication log on Linux to see the time frames, username targeted and source IP addresses. If I spot a single IP hammering hundreds of items per minute, that is an obvious brute force. Next, I do block the offending IP at the firewall via fail to ban to immediately stop the attempts. If the attacker rotates through many IPs, I do consider implementing more aggressive rate limiting or geo blocking based on the threat intelligence. Then I do check for successful logins during that window. If any credentials were compromised, I do disable the account, reset password and search for unauthorized activity like new secure cell keys, cron jobs or suspicious files. Then I do also audit secure cell configuration, ensure root logging is disabled, password authentication is off, using like key based only, and only allowed users are specified in allow users. Finally, I do document the incidents, recommended long-term mitigation like implementing two-factor authentication on a secure cell, moving to a jump host or using port knocking, and update SIM correlation rule to catch similar patterns earlier. Okay. Now you found an executable running from the temporary directory. What would you do next? Okay, an executable in a temporary folder is a classic red flag. Let's my approach to investigate and respond. First, I do identify the process using EDR, note the process name, PID and parent process and command lines to like sysinternals, process explorer or PS and ISOF on Linux are great for this. Next, I do quarantine the process, suspend or kill it to prevent further malicious behavior. Then I do collect forensic data like memory dumps, the executable file itself and related registry or file artifacts. Then I do submit the binary to a sandbox environment and services like a VirusTotal or Hybrid Analyze to see its behavior and indicator of compromise. Meanwhile, I do scan the host for other suspicious file like a DDL, schedule task or a startup entries that might indicate persistence. Okay, then I do trace the delivery vector Was it download via email attachment, browser download, or USB drop? Okay, and checking web proxy, email gateway, or USB auditing logs would reveal that. Okay, after understanding its scope, I do remove all the related artifacts, patch any exploited vulnerabilities, and restore the system from unknown good backup if needed. I do also update detection rule to flag any further executables in temporary directories, like something like a file integrity monitoring policy or EDR sensor rules. Okay. Now a user reports a phishing email. What step would you follow to investigate? Okay, phishing is the top initial access vector. Let me explain how I handle reported phishing. First, I do capture the email like headers, body, attachments, and any embedded URLs. I do analyze headers to confirm the sender's true origin, like SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. Checks can reveal spoofing. Next, I do sandbox any attachment in a controlled environment, like for example like any.run, cuckoo, and analyze embedded URLs in a URL analyze tool to check for malicious payload or credential harvesting pages. Okay. Meanwhile, I do search SIEM logs for other recipients of the same email and flag them for awareness. If credentials were entered on a fake site, I do reset the user's password immediately and check for suspicious logins and scan their endpoint for malware, especially if the link deliver an implant. I do also block the sender's domain IP at the email gateway and firewall, then push out a company wide warning about the phishing campaigning, including indicator of compromise, so everyone can stay vigilant. Finally, I do document the incidents, conduct a quick post mortem, and update email filtering rules or user trainings materials to prevent similar attack. Okay. Now, if you see repeated failed logging attempts followed by a successful logging, how would you analyze it? Okay. This pattern could indicate a successful brute force or a credential stuffing. Okay. In my process, I do start by identifying the user and source IP involved. I do look at time stamps, geolocation, and the number of attempts. If the source IP is outside normal range or geolocations, that is red flag. Next, I do review post logging activity, what commands the user ran, files accessed, or configuration changes made. In a window, event ID like 4624 logon and 4688 process creation are useful in Linux. Authentication log and bash history can help. I do also check whether the compromised account had admin privileges. If so, the risk is much higher. If I find malicious activity, I do immediately disable the account and force a password reset and scan the endpoint for malicious tools like mimikatz or web cells. Finally, I do correlate this event with other logs like VPN endpoints or SSO logs to see if the attacker moved laterally. Then I do update detection rule, perhaps adding a rule to flag any successful logins after a threshold of failures within a short time frame. Okay. Now you detect a sudden spike in outbound traffic from one endpoint. How would you handle the situation? Okay, a sudden outbound traffic surge often a single data exfiltration or malware beginning. Now, how I do respond? First, I do isolate the endpoint from the network to stop potential data leakage. Then I do capture the network traffic like using tool like Wireshark or a network tab to identify the destination IPs, protocols and volumes involved. Okay. Next, I do analyze the process responsible using EDR to see which process is generating the traffic. Is it a legitimate app like a video conference or something malicious like a ransomware beacon? Okay, if I confirm malicious exfiltration, I do kill the process, block the destination IPs at the firewall and perform a full malware scan on the endpoint. Then I do review log to determine when the traffic spike began, what data was transferred and whether other systems were involved. Okay, this helped me understand the scope and impact. Finally, I do document the incidents, restore the endpoint from unknown good image if needed, and update detection rule, maybe adding a threshold based alert for unused outbound spikes. Okay. Now, how would you differentiate a real malware infection from a false positive antivirus alert? Okay, false positive can waste time while real infections need urgent action. Okay, in my approach to tell them apart, first I do collect context, scan the file or process with multiple antivirus engaged like a virus total to see if it is flagged consistently or by just one vendor. Next, I do examine behavior in a sandbox. Does it attempt network connection, modify registry key, encryption file, or spawn suspicious child process? Okay, true malware exhibit malicious behavior pattern. I do also check digital signatures. Legitimate software is often signed by unknown vendors. If there is still doubt, I do escalate to a malware analyst for deeper reverse engineering. Meanwhile, I do isolate the endpoint to prevent potential spread. By combining multiple data points like antivirus detections, behavior analysis, signatures and reputation, I can confidently distinguish a false positive from a real infection. Okay. Now, what indicator would make you escalate an alert to the next level? Okay, escalate is about recognizing when incidents goes beyond the initial trigger. What I look for: first, sign of persistence like new services, registry auto runs or created scheduled tasks. Okay. Second, privilege escalation, creating of new privileged account or membership changes. Okay. Third one is a lateral movement, RDP or SMB, connection from the compromised host to others. Fourth one, data exfiltration, unusual outbound connection or a large file transfer. Fifth one, multiple endpoint infection, indicating a border campaigning. If I see any of these, I escalate to incident response or a L2, L3 analyst for deeper forensic work. It ensures we contain threats before they become breaches. Okay. Now, how do you document and report your finding after investigating an alert? Okay. Clear documentation is a critical for handoff or a compliances. In my reporting process, I use a standard incident ticket template that includes first, incident summary, what happened, when and how discovered. Second, a scope and impact, like affected system and data. Third one, investigation step, tools used, finding timelines. And fourth one, containment and remediation, like action taken, current status. Fifth one, recommendations, like a lesson learned, policies or rule updates. Okay, I keep language clear and concise using screenshots or log snippets for evidence. Then I present the report to the SOC manager and relevant stakeholders, ensuring everyone understand the risk and next step. This way, we maintain an audit trail and continuously improve our defenses. Okay, this round is a super important because it shows the interviewer that you can connect theory to real world actions. Okay, which is exactly what a SOC analyst does every day. I hope this gave you more confidence in handling alert based questions. Don't forget to subscribe if you have not already. Coming up next is a final part, round 4, HR and behavioral questions. This might sound simple, but trust me, it is just as critical as the technical round. See you there. Okay.